Okay, picture this. It's 2007, and Nissan unleashes an absolute monster that puts the entire supercar world on notice. Everyone held their breath, waiting for the next big thing, the R36. But then, crickets. For nearly 2 decades, nothing happened. So let's get into the story of why Nissan's legend basically got locked in a time capsule.
So this number you're looking at, 7 minutes, 38.54 seconds. This is where our story really kicks off. Back in 2007, this was the lap time the brand new Nissan GTR R35 threw down at Germany's Nürburgring. You know, the ultimate test track for any serious performance car. And look, this wasn't just a fast time. It was a declaration of war on the entire supercar establishment.
And I mean, this sent a massive shockwave through the whole industry. You had this Japanese car wearing a humble Nissan badge and costing about 70 grand that had just humiliated the Porsche 911 Turbo, a car that cost twice as much. The press dug up an old nickname, Godzilla. And it fit, because this thing was a monster, engineered to just flatten the established hierarchy.
Which brings us to the central mystery here. A car this revolutionary, this dominant, it should have evolved, right? Generation after generation. But instead, the R35 just stayed on the production line, fundamentally the same car for 18 years. Was that a strategy, or was it a tragedy?
To figure that out, we have to open 3 doors, so to speak. And behind door number 1, we find a wild story of corporate chaos, starring the very man who made the GTR possible in the first place. And that man was Carlos Ghosn. When he took over a nearly bankrupt Nissan back in the late 90s, he pulled off this ruthless, legendary turnaround. But he also got that a car company needs more than just profits, it needs a soul. He was the GTR's champion, its biggest believer. He saw it as the legend Nissan needed. He was, for all intents and purposes, the father of the R35. And then, in 2018, the GTR's champion fell. And he fell hard. Ghosn's arrest in Tokyo, and then his absolutely bonkers escape from Japan a year later. I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up. It's like a Hollywood movie. But the fallout in the real world was a massive leadership crisis at Nissan. The vision for the company's future, and for its most important car, was just gone. So here's the takeaway from all that. With its visionary leader gone, Nissan was left completely rudderless. A kind of strategic paralysis just took over. And those ambitious, expensive, forward-thinking projects like, say, developing a next-gen GTR, well, they were put on the back burner indefinitely. The will to protect the legend had vanished right along with its champion. All right, let's move on to door number 2. Because even without all the corporate drama, Nissan was staring down the barrel of a brutal financial reality that was putting the GTR's future in serious jeopardy. The financial picture was pretty stark. In the 2010s, the entire world went completely crazy for SUVs. Models like the Qashqai and the Rogue, they were selling by the millions, bringing in huge, predictable money. The GTR, even at its best years, sold maybe a few thousand units. So if you're an executive with a limited R&D budget, the choice is, well, it's painfully obvious. You invest in the cars that sell, not the niche hero. And on top of that, there was another wall getting higher and higher: global regulations. You had tightening emission standards, and this is a wild one: new noise level rules in Europe. All this meant the GTR's magnificent twin-turbo V6 engine, the VR38, was quickly becoming obsolete and straight up illegal in some of its key markets. This basically backed Nissan into a corner. They had 2 choices, both of them terrible. Path 1, spend hundreds of millions redesigning the engine just to meet the new laws. Or Path 2, spend hundreds of millions on an entirely new car from the ground up. For a company that was still pretty fragile financially, both options were just way too expensive for a low-volume car. Godzilla was trapped, not by a competitor, but by a spreadsheet. Okay, this brings us to our 3rd door, and to what I like to call the Supra paradox. Because to really get the consequences of Nissan's inaction, it's fascinating to look at the GTR's old rival, the Toyota Supra. It's a tale of 2 totally different philosophies. So Toyota faced the exact same problem: massive development costs. Their solution? They compromised. They teamed up with BMW, using a German engine and platform to bring the Supra back to life. Nissan, on the other hand, decided to wait, to preserve the GTR's purity. But the price they paid for that purity was freezing the car in time. And that just leaves us with this really provocative question, doesn't it? Toyota kind of compromised the Supra's soul to make sure its body could live on and evolve. Nissan kept the GTR's soul pure, but its body stayed trapped in 2007. Which path do you think was the greater tragedy? But
After this long winter, there is finally some movement. The wait is ending. We now have a concrete vision for the R36, and it really looks like Godzilla is finally about to wake up. So, what do we actually know? Well, Nissan officials are saying expect it before 2030, and it'll be on a completely new platform. But here's the big shocker. The core VR38 engine block is gonna survive. The solution to all those emissions and regulatory problems? Electrification. The next GTR is going to be a hybrid, but the mission? It's exactly the same. It must be the king of the Nürburgring.
But, here's a kind of weird final thought on the R35's 18-year run. Maybe, just maybe, it became such an icon because it was never replaced. No successor ever came along to cast a shadow over it. It was just frozen in time, a perfect crystal of 2007 engineering.
Which really leads us to the biggest question of all for this next chapter. Can a GTR with batteries and electric motors, built for a totally new era, truly carry the same spirit as the original? Is a hybrid beast still Godzilla? Or was Godzilla just the product of a very specific engine, a specific technology, a specific, unrepeatable moment in time? The answer is coming, but the fact that we're still asking this question almost 20 years later is exactly what makes this legend so incredibly powerful.